Welcome to Circle Time. We're going to continue with our science lessons on rain, water, and the water cycle today. This book is called Down Comes the Rain. It's written by Franklin Branley and it's illustrated by James Hale. I want you to listen for what happens in the water cycle, where we find water, and what the three states of water are. Rain comes from clouds. It comes from big clouds and little clouds. It comes from black clouds, white clouds, and gray clouds. There's the big clouds and the little clouds and the gray, black, and white clouds. All clouds, big ones and little ones, gray ones and white ones, are made of billions of tiny drops of water. The drops are called droplets because they are so small. If this is the size of a drop of water, a droplet would be just a tiny speck, even smaller than this one. So there's the drops right there going into the bowl. And this little square has a little speck in it. And it says that a droplet is even tinier than that little speck inside the red box. Water droplets come from water vapor, and we've talked about that before. Water vapor is in the atmosphere, and it's changed from the liquid in the drops to a gas in the air called water vapor. Water vapor is a gas. There's always water vapor in the air, but you can't see it. Those droplets are so small, we can't see them. We can't smell it, and we can't feel it. Unless it's a really humid day, and then we can kind of feel that heaviness in the air. So there's the children trying to smell and touch the water vapor, but they can't. Water vapor is made when water evaporates. And we've talked about this before, but let's remind ourselves what evaporation is. This means that the water changes from a liquid, like the water coming down in the raindrops, to a gas. In the morning, you could put a teaspoon of water on a little plate, and by the nighttime, it might have evaporated. If there's nothing left, that means it's evaporated into the air and turned into a gas, water vapor. When wet clothes hang on the clothesline, the water in them evaporates. Did you ever wonder how clothes get dry when they're on a clothesline? Well, yes, the heat from the sun draws the water off of the clothes and up into the air and changes it from the water, liquid water on the clothes, into a gas in the air, water vapor. That's also kind of like the heat from the stove. Instead of the heat from the sun, the heat from the stove changes the water in the tea kettle to water vapor. And when you see the steam coming out, that means the water that was in the tea kettle has been changed from the heat of the stove into a gas that's going up into the air or the atmosphere. There's the picture of the clothes outside the window on the clothesline. And there's the picture of the steam coming out of the water kettle that's turned into a vapor or a gas. Most of water vapor in the air comes from lakes, oceans, and rivers. It comes from the leaves of plants and from the wet ground. So those are 5 different places where the water is drawn up from. Rivers, lakes, and oceans, plants, leaves, and the wet ground. Heat from the sun causes that water to evaporate or be lifted up into the air and changed to a gas. There's the children outside playing, observing nature, and we can see that the little boy has a glass of cold water to cool him down. We can see that the little girl is using water to water her flower bed right here. Here's the little boy's glass of water to drink on a hot day. And this little girl is watching the air balloon rise in the sky, lifted by the air and the wind up into the sky. When you breathe out, you put water vapor into the air. Did you know that? When you breathe, little water droplets come out of your mouth into the air. So when it's very cold out in the wintertime, when you see your breath, that's because water vapor from your mouth has condensed or become thicker. And then you can actually see it. It changes from a gas to a little cloud that's coming out of your mouth. We know that clouds happen when the vapor in the air changes back into little liquid drops. And those drops collect together to form a cloud. Because when the water vapor rises up higher, it gets colder. Cold air changes the water vapor or the gas back into liquid water or drops. So when you breathe, the water vapor from inside your mouth or the gas turns back on a cold day into water drops that make a little cloud outside your mouth. Isn't that cool? And you can see those little puffs or clouds coming out of this person's mouth as they're skiing and they're breathing in the cold air. When cows, horses, dogs, and cats breathe out, they put water vapor into the air too. On a cold day, the water vapor changes to droplets and makes little clouds that you can see. You can see those little clouds coming out of the horse's nose and mouth there, the little white puffs. You can make water vapor change to water. Put a lot of ice into a glass of water. So that's cooling the water down. As the glass gets colder, the outside of the glass gets wet. So the water that's in the air around the glass, or the water vapor, when it gets cold, collects together to form drops around the outside of the glass, and that's condensation. When water goes up into the air and turns from liquid to a gas, that's evaporation. When water vapor or gas collects together when the air is colder and forms liquid drops again, that's called condensation. So evaporation and condensation are opposites. One is liquid water, cold air changing gas to a liquid, that's condensation. And one is hot air changing liquid to a gas, and that's evaporation. Sometimes the glass stays dry. That means there's not very much water vapor or gas in the air. So there's a little experiment you can try at home. Put it cooling down the water by putting a whole bunch of ice in it. And then the water vapor around it changes or condenses, and you can see drops on the outside. But if there's not enough water vapor in the air, this won't happen. You won't get any condensation around the glass. The air holds the water vapor. So the gas in the air is held by the air around it. Breeze carries it from one place to another. Much of the water vapor moves up and away from the earth. So you can see by these arrows the wind or the breeze that's drawing the water vapor up higher and higher in the sky, just like the hot air balloon is being drawn up higher into the sky. Air above the earth is always cold, so above the earth. The higher you go, the colder it gets. When air gets cold enough, the water vapor in it condenses. The water vapor changes to water droplets. The water droplets make the clouds. Just like the cold air on a cold day makes the water vapor from your mouth turn into a little puff or a cloud outside your mouth, when the water vapor rises higher and gets colder, higher in the air, it changes to water droplets very high in the air that are big puffs or big clouds. And there's the air rising, the water vapor, and here it has risen so high that it's cold enough for it to change back from a gas to a liquid, and those drops form together or cling together to make the clouds. Condensation, evaporation. And it keeps happening over and over again, and that's why we call it a cycle. It goes around and around. Evaporation to the air, condensing to clouds, coming back down in a liquid or raindrops, being drawn up again by the sun, happening over and over. When clouds are thin and wispy, they are holding only a tiny little bit of water. So see those thin wispy clouds? They're not fat because they don't have much liquid or water drops inside them. When clouds are thick and dark, they are holding much more water, and it's about to drop because they can't hold much more. There's the thick, dark storm clouds. Like we saw in our story yesterday, come on, rain, those thick gray clouds. A single droplet is so small that you cannot see it, but you can see a cloud. That's because there are millions and millions and millions of water droplets that have collected together to form the cloud. Inside the clouds, droplets join together to make drops. When clouds can no longer hold them, the drops fall to the earth. The sky is full of them. They fall through the air and splatter onto the ground, and they are raindrops. There's the children in the basket of the hot air balloon, and they're feeling the raindrops coming down out of the big, fat gray cloud. Sometimes there are only a few small raindrops that fall slowly, and that's called drizzling, a light, misty rain. The children are still outside playing in it. Sometimes there are lots of big drops that fall very fast, and now it's pouring outside. They're not going to stay outside for the pouring rain. They're running inside. Sometimes the drops in the clouds freeze. These raindrops become ice drops. This can happen even on a hot summer day. Did you know that? So I said to listen for the 3 states of water. So far, we've had water as a gas when it's in the atmosphere, water vapor. We've had water as a liquid when it's coming down in drops, or when it's in the lakes and oceans, or hanging from the wet clothes on the line. And now we've got water in its 3rd state, which is ice. Yes, when water freezes, we have ice. So liquid, gas, and ice. Those are the 3 states of water. And we said that it gets very cold the higher you go up in the sky. And sometimes it's cold enough for those droplets and those drops of water to freeze. That's because the clouds and the water droplets are high above the earth. Many clouds are so high that it's freezing cold. Some clouds might be higher than most airplanes ever go. The higher the clouds, the colder they are. So you can see there's an airplane. Here's the hot air balloon. There's the airplane even higher than that, and there's the clouds that are even higher than the airplane. So we know it's very cold up there, and sometimes the liquid rain or water drops and droplets freeze to become ice or freezing rain. In these high cold clouds, water vapor changes to droplets, and the droplets change to drops, and the drops freeze into ice. Inside the cloud, these tiny bits of ice start to fall. But they don't always fall out of the cloud. Instead, they might be carried upward by air that is moving away from the earth. So here's the freezing cold cloud. Water vapor changes to droplets. Water drops change to ice drops. But instead of falling immediately to the ground, sometimes they're lifted up even higher by those air currents we talked about. As they are carried upward, more water collects on the tiny little bits of ice. When that water freezes, the drops of ice have become bigger with another layer of ice around them because they've gone even higher. The ice drops are now heavier. So once more they fall towards the earth because they're getting heavier. But the air moving away from the earth might carry them even higher again. Higher and higher they go, and another layer of ice freezes onto them. So each time they start to fall and get lifted higher by the air currents, they get another layer of ice and they become bigger. The ice drops get heavier and heavier. They get so heavy that the air can no longer carry them upward. So the ice drops to the earth. And remember, it's got lots of layers of ice around it. So these drops are pretty big by now. And it's raining ice. So there's the air currents lifting the ice up. So it gets another layer. It starts to come down. Then it gets lifted up, gets another layer. And finally it's so heavy it can't be lifted up anymore. And it comes down as ice balls. And there's a little boy running inside. Right over here. I don't know whether you can see him or not. And when those ice balls fall to the earth, do you know what they're called? Yes, that's it. They're called hail. The ice drops are called hailstones. They might be the size of your fingernail, pretty small, or they might be as big as golf balls, or even bigger. In 1970, hailstones as big as soft balls fell on Kansas. So softballs or a baseball. That's how big those balls of hail were because they've been lifted up so many times and gotten so many layers of ice around them. They were as big as a baseball. Fields of corn were flattened by the hailstones. Hailstones are not really stones. They're pieces of ice. So when it hails, you need to go inside so you don't get hit on the head. When it stops hailing, go outside and pick up a hailstone. If you break it in two, you will see layers of ice where it kept getting another layer forming over top. If you cut it in half, you can see that. And there are the children. They've got pots over their head to make sure no more hail comes down when they're out there. And they've collected a hailstone and cut it in half, and you can see the layers of how the ice is formed over layer, and it almost looks like a little snail when it's cut in half. Water in the clouds makes hail. Water in the clouds makes rain. So ice, liquid. When it stops raining or hailing, the sun comes out. And what happens when the sun comes out to that liquid water? Once more, it evaporates and changes to gas or vapor and rises into the air. It evaporates from where? Lakes, rivers, oceans, the leaves of plants, from the wet ground. It evaporates off of the hair on cows, horses, cats, and dogs, and also from our skin, off of you and me. There's the children enjoying the sunshine after the rain. The rain is drawing, the sun is drawing the liquid from the grass, from the animals, from the children, from the lakes, from the plants, back up into the air again. The water changes to water vapor. It is carried up and away from the earth, where the air is cool or even freezing. When the water vapor cools, it condenses or forms into drops again. The water vapor changes to water droplets, and then all together the droplets make the big puffy clouds. The water droplets join together to make water drops, and the cloud gets heavy and the drops fall to the earth. So here's our pictures to remind us of the states of water. The liquid from the lake, the steam from, or the gas from the tea kettle. The water vapor is rising in the air. The puff or the little cloud coming out of the dog's mouth or in the air. That's when the water droplets condense. The cloud gets heavy and forms liquid. And we can also see the condensing of the drops on the side of the cup. So the three states of water. What are they again? You got it. Liquid, gas, and ice. And once more, it is raining. The children are inside sitting at the kitchen table watching the rain from the window and doing a puzzle. And I hope at your house you've been having lots of fun learning about the world around you and also having fun doing things like puzzles and activities with your family. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the weather.